Teaching Youth Media, A Critical Guide to Literacy, Video Production, and Social Change by Stephen Goodman was published in 2003 by the Teacher College Press. Goodman is one of the founders and directors of the Educational Video Center, a private, nonprofit organization dedicated to teaching documentary filmmaking to New York inner-city youth. The book addresses multiple issues and outcomes of teaching youth media production, including literacy barriers and building opportunities, how to teach youth media production, ways in which youth media production is successful as a mode of learning for many youth at risk or not, as well as challenges and solutions for integrating media production into regular and after-school curriculums. Through personal stories working with New York City youth, Goodman explores the educational journey he experienced. Some of the most important aspects of video production that rose to the top of his experience addresses the conditions of learning that benefit youth, particularly where there are limited verbal, reading, and writing skills. The deep, latent visual and communication skills that are present through the act of being media consumers and byproducts of a media-saturated culture, however, are greatly beneficial and support the learning process of documentary filmmaking. What also comes out during that learning process must address the personal issues and social barriers that cause resistance to learning and literacy, as well as the issues within the media culture itself that is generated relentlessly for our consumption. Goodman suggests that, quote, to be able to understand the issues that impact their daily lives and to publicly articulate their thoughts about them, that is, to participate in civic dialogue, youth first need to have a strong grasp of language in all of its modes. Clearly, one of the main forces of education in our society, the commercial media, has little incentive to educate its young audiences about such things. Its business imperatives demand that it teach urban youth to preoccupy themselves with the consumption of what it is selling them, the cultural triangle of fashion, music, and sports, and not necessarily to think critically and express themselves articulately about their experience of inner-city life. That job, in theory, falls to the other system of education, our public schools. End quote. Through the process of placing cameras in the hands of the youth in their program, the author observes that they begin to shift their social position from being a participant in the community to a participant observer of the community. And so the shift to critical thinking presents itself. At its most basic, the student's inquiry begins with and spirals out of the art of questioning, as all inquiry does. But for questions to eventually lead to answers, and perhaps to new questions, inquirers must learn where and how to gather information. They need to learn how to assess the reliability of the information they obtain, and finally how to interpret and integrate the new data into their existing frameworks of knowledge experience. This is fundamentally a social and intellectual process. But for the learners at EVC, this way of knowing is limited by a number of factors, both social and intellectual. While they learn to exploit the streets as a valuable site for research, the students often perceived libraries as being generally off-limits to them as far as research was concerned. All experiences produce intellectual growth. The question is, in which direction does the growth take place? Being dropped into a situation with cameras in hand does not, in and of itself, make for a meaningful learning experience. In even the most experiential student-centered classroom, the role of the teacher is essential in shaping and organizing and directing experiences so the learner can grow and develop through them. At EVC, educators who choose to teach with media must carry in their minds images of potential opportunities and conditions and levels of learning. The teacher must be ever vigilant on the lookout for these teachable moments, creating, capturing, and exploiting them whenever possible. It's a complicated dance to do well. The teacher needs to work on multiple levels simultaneously, but they all fall within two general levels: the process of learning and the process of production. The teacher needs to make these two processes as public and visible as possible, that the students have a shared sense of the trajectory their project will take from pre-production through production, post-production, and public screening, and the scheduled need to complete each phase. At EVC, the learner-centered approach for both documentary production and academic skill development is practiced within the context of collaborative group work. This approach presents the teacher with a difficult challenge above and beyond the teaching of cognitive or technical skills. The need to further their emotional and social development is ever present, since the students are put into a situation where they must not work only alongside students from different schools, neighborhoods, and cultural backgrounds, but also forge common vision of their project. So, it is critical to the success of this approach for students to learn to listen to all voices in the group and solve problems through group discussions. The community-based and learner-centered approach to media education has failed to fit into the underlying purposes and structure of schools as in national institutions. Among the bureaucratic and pedagogical roadblocks to both state and local levels to integrating media education into school curricula are problems of teacher certification, professional development, testing requirements, and scheduling. Clearly, the factory model of school must be radically reformed in order for a rigorous media education program to become an integral part of school life. Youth media organizations have shown that many after-school programs offer a range of approaches that are congruent with and create openings for such work. Goodman concludes that in the hands of students, video is a powerful tool for documentation and reflection. And in order to build and sustain successful environments that support that work during and after school, staff needs to be engaged in an ongoing process of professional development, in addition to offering training workshops on a whole range of teaching and youth development strategies. Goodman concludes that some lives have been changed, some have opened up, we have come quite far, but damn, we still have a long way to go.